Hello everyone, Dan the Wheelman here. Just a note before we get to the review of the BMW BMW X6 M50i that you came here for. I do mention the Miami Marlins in that video. In fact, I referenced them quite a lot. That video was shot before it came out. They were having issues with COVID. I just want you to know that. I would never have shot that video like that. I don't condone whatever it was they did to contract all those cases of COVID, but it happened after the video was shot, so I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that I was aware of that. Otherwise, enjoy the video. Oh, those BMW purists really didn't like the X6, did they? It was bad enough that about 5 years before the X6 arrived, BMW, a company that hitherto had been known for building great sports cars, fast sedans, for having a Formula One racing effort, had decided to commit the cardinal sin of trying to make some money and building a 4x4 in the form of the X5. I mean, this was a company that helped develop the engine for the McLaren F1, which some would say is the most legendary sports car of all time. What could they be thinking? And the X6 was somehow worse. It was so clearly an SUV, but the fact that it was styled to look like a BMW coupe, and the fact that BMW even went so far as to calling it a sports activity coupe, whatever, was an even worse transgression in the eye of the BMW purist. It was the butt of many jokes, perhaps most famous of which had Jeremy Clarkson of the BBC motoring show Top Gear try to drive an X6 up a grassy hill in the UK, only to have it slide back down as his Range Rover camera car trundled gamely past in the background. People didn't mind though, they bought the X6. And it got to the point where almost every luxury manufacturer, German or otherwise, had a four-door coupe SUV thing in their lineup. Acura had one at one point, now Mercedes-Benz has one, Audi. BMW liked the idea so much that they've got two now. They have the X6 and the smaller X4. And for 2020, there's a new X6. And more importantly, there's a new trim. It's called the M50i, and it kind of walks the line between the bonkers X6M and the lesser X6s in the lineup. Kind of a less powerful, more powerful X6, if you will. And today I'm going to drive it to see what this vehicular pioneer really is like in 2020. So BMW calls this a coupe of sorts, or a coupe of sorts. And the driving position is sort of there. Unfortunately, it's not exactly there in the right way for me. I find it's a little bit too lean back for me. I've adjusted the seat a number of ways. I can't quite get it right. I think the steering wheel tilts and telescopes there, so that's kind of helped things out a little bit. I feel I'm a little bit canted back, not a huge deal, but it is the way it is. I do like the view out forward though is really quite good, and like BMWs have always done, they've got all these kind of controls angled nicely towards me. Everything's easy to reach, easy to see, and I like that about the X6. I just find this seat a little bit too kind of tilty. I've either got to sit too far back or move the seat back up and then kind of be kind of too canted forward. So I've had a hard time kind of finding that perfect middle ground when it comes to the seat position in the X6. So of course you're going to have less room in the back of the X6 than you would in its X5 kind of sibling, and you can see here my knees are right up against my seat back. My headroom is, it's not the worst I've seen, but with this hat on, I can't really look up. I'm going to be nailing my bill against the roof, so it does have that very swoopy, roof line. Obviously, it's kind of what makes it this four-door coupe. But BMW obviously expects this back seat to be used. It's got not just one zone, two zone, or three zone climate control. I've got quad zone climate control in here because I've got two zones for the two back seats. So not only does BMW expect you to be using one of the back seats, it expects you to put your whole family in here, which I find kind of interesting. I've got a USB port back here, the USB-C variety. That's all I've got in here. No traditional USB ports, so keep that in mind. It's got climate control, heated seats. I've got a little storage bin under here for my phone. I've even got a little attachment here to put in a mount for my iPad. So obviously, then again, of course, this seat here is, I'm guessing, the exact same seat that comes out of the X5. So where you might be more likely to have somebody in the back seat of the X5 that needs an iPad, you might not have that here, but they've already got the seats. They're already building the seats. I might as well just put the same seat in, save them some money. So it's, tweeters in the door, two of them actually, speaker here and speaker down here. Cup holder down here. I've got the center armrest with my own storage bin, my own cup holders right here, not heated and cooled like the ones up front, but still have them, and all that's like, this is like a back seat meant to be used, obviously. Maybe not for someone my size though, that's for sure. And because you might have more couples going on ski trips than families going on camping trips in this, you've got a couple of things to make that a little bit easier too. You've got a nice pass-through door, so not pass-through door, but you've got a 40-20-40 split back here, so you can fit long items and not cost yourself a whole back seat, a whole one of these smallish back seats. Or if you want to go the traditional route, you got a 60-40 split, nice flat load floor, which is good because the trunk here, as I'm sure you can imagine, thanks to its very, very sloping rear window, is a very low trunk. Hard to put high items in there or tall items, so you're gonna want a little more room maybe to pack them on their sides like this, so in that case you'll use a folding rear seat. So not the roomiest back seat, but one that's got a whole heck of a lot of features for sure in the X6 M50i. So while I had a little bit of trouble with the seating position itself, I do love this dash here. Everything is canted a little bit towards me. I can see everything nicely. All the controls are well within reach. Nice big chunky steering wheel in my hands here. Not too button heavy, unlike the Mustang I drove last week. You've got just 3 spokes here. None of the stuff hanging out of here. Just a couple of paddles, which I really like. Lots of carbon fiber, swaths of carbon fiber actually, which is part of a $500 package. More on the packages in a minute, but looks really, really good. I've got heated and cooled cup holders, which actually works surprisingly well, and I love. You got your storage bin here, digital gauge cluster, huge widescreen display, something like, I don't know, 10 inches big or something like that. Just really, really, really nice in here in general. It does get pricey though. I mean, this car lists at over $100,000. I'll get the full MSRP on the screen here. You'll see in just a second. But you do get everything. This is the highest you can get in the X6, with the exception of the X6M when it comes to kind of MSRP. A lot of this though comes as part of a $17,000 package. $17,000 package. That costs more than my first car times 6. Yeah, that's right. So like that's crazy. You can do the math. That's crazy, but you get everything with that. Lane keep assist, Wi-Fi. You've got your quad zone climate control. You have heavy duty sound system. You've got all this kind of cool stuff. It's not everything. Like I said, the carbon fiber is an extra package on top of all that, which I found kind of surprising. But you get all sorts of stuff with that $78,000. And if you want, you can break it down. You don't need to get the full bore $17,000 package. So there's certain packages you can break down that range from about $1,500 all the way up to $17,000, or all the way up to $9,000, I guess. Then there's the $17,000 package on top of that. So you can kind of pick and choose more, and I guess I kind of like that. I mean, if you're going to be spending this kind of money on a car, you might be able to kind of better swallow a $17,000 package, which makes it a little bit easier to buy the car in the first place. But if you want to pick and choose, you can do that too. So first of all, as is becoming tradition in these reviews, a note about the hat before the driving impression segment. I'm wearing the Miami Marlins hat today because, like the Marlins have always done when it comes to baseball operations, BMW definitely went their own way when it comes to the X6. Let me explain. The Miami Marlins, at the time, originally they were the Florida Marlins, remained the only major league sports team in North America, MLB, NHL, NBA, NFL, to have never lost a playoff series in their entire history. They have won the championship every time they've gone to the playoffs. Pretty good, right? Well, sort of. The trouble is, they've only gone to the playoffs twice since they first arrived in the league in 93, in 97, and in 2003. And the way they did their business is they'd win the championship in 97, and because they couldn't afford to kind of re-sign all these players that helped them become a championship team, they were a pretty inexpensively run team, they eventually had a Florida fire sale and sold the ball off. So they had a couple of years of downturn, then another win in 03, and then the wash, rinse, and repeat. Although the trouble is, there hasn't been a repeat since 03. They haven't been to the playoffs since, and so there you go. But we'll see what happens, I guess, if and when the MLB ever gets back to playing baseball again. But that's where we're at the Marlins for now. So like the Marlins, Beamer definitely went its own way when it came to developing the X6. And like the Marlins, the X6 is really good in the situation to which it's most suited. Second of all, that is a lot of grunt. That's a twin-turbo V8, good for 523 horsepower and 553 pound-feet of torque. The X6M competition, the top trim of the X6, yes, I know, even at over 100 grand, this is not the top trim, but I digress for now, only makes 617 horsepower. That's not a huge difference, really, when you think of how big these numbers already are. So this is incredibly fast, fed to all four wheels, but mostly the rears. It's a rear bias setup through an 8-speed automatic transmission. So needless to say, forward progress in the X6 M50i is astounding. The 0 to 60 time, or 0 to 100 kilometer an hour time, is like less than 5 seconds. That's bonkers. That's an awesome figure, whether you're called a sport, an SAC, an SAV, an SUV, a CUV, a see you later, a CCTV, whatever you want to be called. That is impressive. Those are impressive figures. And this vehicle, when on a fun, like darty kind of back road, as you'll see in the next kind of shot here, is really, 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 really good. That is fast, everybody. So there is a launch control system on the X6 M50i. I didn't use it there, but it's kind of a indicator to show how, what the sporting intentions of this are, even though it's not the full, red-blooded X6M version. But I'll tell you, now I haven't had a chance to drive the X6M yet. I will one day soon, hopefully. But this, I don't know how you can feel much quicker than this, to be honest. Like, this thing through here is a very, very quick and agile. I wouldn't say agile, it's not really the right word. It's hard to be agile when you weigh as much as this thing weighs with these big, huge wheels and so on. But it is definitely a able partner, to sound slightly cliched, on a bendy back road like this. What I'd hope to see from the X6M, and I wouldn't be surprised if I were to see it, was a little more information through the steering wheel. While I don't quite have that sense that there's like an air bubble between the wheel and the front axle, as I have before in previous fast BMWs, both of the M kind of performance and the full M variety, there's just not a lot of feel, still not enough feel, I should say, through this wheel. I still don't really know what's going on underneath my front axle here, my front tires. I don't have a lot of feedback there, and so I'm kind of guessing a little bit. But it's good, though, then, that this has such a quick response to your steering inputs, because you kind of learn to trust it, even if you are down a little bit on feel. And the brakes are fantastic, too. So if you haven't quite dialed in quite enough lock, you can tap those brakes and kind of correct yourself. Also, you've got the M Sport differential as well here, which kind of helps the car pivot through turns by, kind of distributing torque to certain wheels and so on. So it's great for all that. Another thing I'd like to see, hopefully, from the X6M is, while this vehicle does have adaptive dampers, I'm still getting a body roll that I would say is not deal breaking necessarily, but it is noticeable. The body roll through here, I'm finding, like through this turn right here, for example, I'm finding that I do have to keep my hands really holding on tight to that wheel. I don't have a lot of kind of support through I don't have as much support through the seat as I'd like either. I can adjust the side bolsters here, so I can make them a little more kind of hip hugging. My guess, once again, is that the X6M will have more aggressive sports seats that'll keep you kind of more in place when it comes to these bendy turns. And that's important, because your ability to dial in the proper inputs and so forth often depends on you not sliding around the seat a lot. There's not just for show that sports cars and race cars have such deep seats. You don't want to be having to use the steering wheel to hold on as well as to kind of steer your vehicle. So you don't want to have to be doing those things. So I'd like maybe a deeper pair of seats as well. But again, this is not the full M version. This is the M Performance. So you've got the power. You just don't have quite aggressive a chassis, I guess. And I was in Sport Plus mode there the whole way through. So that's the most aggressive. It does have adaptable dampers, and so adaptive dampers, and so I was in the most aggressive state to firm those dampers up, but still getting some body roll through these turns. But to me, this version of the X6 is more for those who want to have the power, but don't necessarily care so much about taking it to the track or driving on too many windy roads like this. And that's great. That's fantastic. I mean, unbelievable steering. I even like the driver aids in this. I rarely keep active lane keep assist systems on. By that, I mean the systems that will steer you back online if you start to kind of go out of your lane. But this one I've left on because you can adjust the 3 levels of intervention, which means it basically changes how long the system waits to steer you back online. Now, if you have it in the most aggressive setting, if you even deviate, like it seems, a half a foot away from the center lane, it'll start steering you back online. That's a little bit crazy, but the lowest intervention setting, it kind of waits till you've reached the end, then it kind of gently guides you back on. Not a lot of ping pong in between the lanes. Really, really well. So I've actually left that on, which is not something I tend to do. Adaptive cruise control, it goes down to 0, which I love for city traffic and stop and go traffic. That's great. Much less tiring to worry about. And plus you got all the rest. You got you even got an active blind spot system, which basically if it senses there's a car in your blind spot, it won't let you steer there, which I love. Like this is as autonomous as you can get almost without being a fully autonomous vehicle. Of course, you leave your hands off the wheel for a certain amount of time, it'll tell you to put them back on and so on, but that's really good. So that's really, really awesome. Out on the open road, this is a fantastic vehicle. And from the driver's seat, while I won't say I feel like I'm sat in a low slung sports car, I'm definitely not, even though this is kind of like a crossover coupey, sporty coupe thing, whatever. You definitely know you're a high riding kind of SUV type vehicle. There are some SUVs like the Mercedes GLC I drove a couple of weeks back that you would have seen the video on. You can see it right there, actually. You don't get that feeling you're in a smaller vehicle. You know you're in a pretty big vehicle here, but it still drives really small, which is fantastic. Really, really agile and all that kind of stuff. And that's great for the open road, but this is a big kind of crossover-y, whatever you want to call it, and it's the kind of vehicle that's going to be spending a lot of time in the cities and kind of moving families around and stuff like that. And it's not really all that well. I mean, it's not terribly suited for that. We talked before about the back seat. We talked before about the trunk. It's not like definitely not made for that. But many would say it's not really made for that. It's made to be this kind of quirky take on an SUV. Using the all-wheel drive, the high ride height, the feeling of security you get in an SUV, but you lose, a lot of the practicality, so you get kind of like that sporty looking styling, I guess, the coupe-like styling, four-door coupe styling, and that's fine. But the trouble I'm having here, I guess, is why wouldn't you just get like an X5M or sorry, an X well, that or an X5 M50i? Why not have the hatch, have the same drivability of the vehicle? There's the same as it's pretty much splitting hairs between the two how they drive, and still have the practicality. If you want a coupe or like a four-door coupe, why wouldn't you buy an 8 Series Grand Coupe, for example? Why wouldn't you go that way? Why does the X6 need to exist? But it's a question that some might say is rhetorical or moot, because they sell these things. You see them quite a lot on the roads, which is probably much to the chagrin of a lot of those purists we talked about earlier, but that's just the way it is. BMW obviously has kind of hit a bit of a niche, whatever, with the X6. But as for me, driving fun and all that aside, I don't think it's the way I'd go. I mean, the X5 is much more practical and same drivability. That's probably the one I have. I don't need that uniqueness of a four-door coupe SUV styling. But then again, at this level, maybe you already own a 3 Series that covers your kind of car needs. So you want another car that still gives you the quality of a BMW and the power, but without the being low slung and cramped up front and so on and so forth. But you still kind of get somewhat kind of sporty looking things. So there's where your X6 fits in, I guess. So it's probably not the one I'd have when it comes to the BMW M Light SUV products. But it's not to say it's a bad vehicle. It's a fantastic vehicle. It's well engineered. It's got great features and size we talked about before. It's just quite quirky. And if you're buying into this, you're buying into the quirk, which I guess would make Doug DeMuro happy. But anyway, whatever. And so that's the decision that you have to make when it comes to going to the BMW dealership in search of something like this. Thanks for tuning into this review. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. If not, no hard feelings. You can follow me on Twitter at DanTheWheelman and on Instagram at DanTheWheelman as well. And tune in next week. Or, even better, tune in later this week when I'm driving a really kind of... We talked about quirky. This is one of the quirkier cars I think I'm going to maybe drive this year, but not for the reasons that are immediately clear, I guess. In fact, it's probably one of the least... This vehicle starts off life as one of the least quirky vehicles on the planet. But what's been done to it, this version I'm going to be driving, takes to a whole nother kind of realm. So, I'm not going to say anything more than that. Tune into the channel and see what I'm talking about. But until then, sayonara, folks.